I'm going to speak for a few minutes now about our theme of the month, pleasure and peace. I shared at the beginning of the month a wonderful quote from my teacher, Nisargadatta, where he tells us, if you look at yourself in moments of pleasure or pain, you will invariably find that it is not the thing itself that is pleasant or painful, but the situation of which it is a part. Pleasure lies in the relationship between the enjoyer and the enjoyed, and the essence of it is acceptance. And so what we've been trying to all do is do what he's talking about, to look for ourselves at our own direct experiences of pain and pleasure. And last month we were looking a little bit more closely at pain, and this month a little more closely at pleasure, and to really observe for ourselves what the actual ingredient here is that makes something feel enjoyable or not. And he says the essence of it is this relationship of acceptance. And so we've been really trying to cultivate that. And of course, our relationship with something is something that we can always be intentional about, conscious about, aware of, and we've got a lot more power in how we relate to something versus like what it is. And the yogic teachings tell us that pleasure and pain are just part of life. They're part of having a body. They come with having a mortal frame that we have to deal with in this lifetime. They're really important information about whether the body has what it's need and is it in harmony and stasis, or if the body doesn't have what it needs and it needs something else. It needs relief or nutrients, or right. And so can we relate to all of it with acceptance? This is the big key. And I find that for me, I have learned a lot recently about accepting pain. And I still have a ways to go with that. But what's been really interesting as I dive into this month is realizing I still have a ways to go in terms of accepting pleasure as well, and accepting ease as well. I often have a hard time fully accepting pleasure or ease, fully accepting that actually right now, the signs all point to things are harmonious, things are okay. I don't have to effort a lot. I don't have to fix anything, right? So I invite all of you to do that, that looking for yourself this month. Next week, I give a much longer, fuller talk on all of this. In the Yoga Sutras, where in the Yoga Sutras Patanjali talks about suffering, he mentions both pleasure and pain. And he says both can be a source of suffering depending on how you relate. And our warning about pleasure is the tendency to get attached to pleasure. And his big warning about pain is our tendency to avoid pain. I have found that for me, those things are true, but I also have to work on accepting pleasure and believing that it can be something that is for me, that I might deserve or be fully willing to and able to accept and receive. So please examine all of that for yourself. And something else that I'm just going to go ahead and share with you guys. It's a small group for sharing today, so I think we've got time for this. I'm going to share an excerpt from a book that I'm going to be sharing more from in our quotes this month. which is called Pleasure Activism, the Politics of Feeling Good. And, you know, I'm usually quoting these ancient texts. I'm usually often quoting men who are many of my teachers and original sources. So I'm bringing this teacher and writer and activist, Adrienne Maree Brown, into the mix. I think is going to be exciting and just sort of anchor us a little bit more in the modern day. This book was written a few years ago. You can follow her on Instagram on like Nisargadatta. Vita's neighbor dog friends are out, who are just let out. So she has to talk to them across the way. That's what's happening over there. Okay, so I'm just going to read just a little bit from the introduction to this book. What is pleasure activism? Pleasure is a feeling of happy satisfaction and enjoyment. Activism consists of efforts to promote, impede, or direct social, political, economic, or environmental reform or stasis with the desire to make improvements in society. Pleasure activism is the work we do to reclaim our whole, happy, and satisfiable selves from the impacts, delusions, and limitations of oppression and/or supremacy. Pleasure activism asserts that we all need and deserve pleasure, and that our social structures must reflect this. In this moment, we must prioritize the pleasure of those most impacted by oppression. Pleasure activists seek to understand and learn from the politics and power dynamics inside of everything that makes us feel good. This includes sex and the erotic, drugs, fashion, humor, passion work, connection, reading, cooking, and or eating, music and other arts, and so much more. Pleasure activists believe that by tapping into the potential goodness in each of us, we can generate juice. Actually, we can generate justice and liberation. Justice juice, that would be good. We can generate justice and liberation, growing a healing abundance where we have been socialized to believe only scarcity exists. Pleasure activism acts from an analysis that pleasure is a natural, safe, and liberated part of life, and that we can offer each other tools and education to make sure that sex, desire, drugs, connection, and other pleasures aren't life-threatening or harming, but life-enriching. Pleasure activism includes work and life lived in the realms of satisfaction, joy, and erotic aliveness that bring about social and political change. Ultimately, pleasure activism is us learning to make justice and liberation the most pleasurable experiences we can have on this planet. So I will share that long quote with you guys as well. Was just excited to kind of bring a little bit of a different voice and perspective into the mix for us. Okay, it's just the three of us now. I am, hang on a second. Here's what I'm going to do. I have enabled the waiting room. So anybody else who wants to pop in here will have to go through the waiting room. I'll make sure that they're a founder. And we could just hang out in here. Solutions. Oh, and she's back. Okay. She is a founder, so it's okay. Oh, what is going on here? We're losing. Uh-oh. I hope that I didn't kick people out by doing that. Oh, we just lost Pam Ferner, and then the other Pamela, I think, is coming back in. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I'm going to be quiet now. Here we go. Oh, and I'm going to stop the recording.